Thank you for tuning in to The Outsiders Chapter 2. Hopefully, you can hear the audio better with this one. We'll find out. Anyway, The Outsiders Chapter 2. Dally was waiting for Johnny and me under the streetlight at the corner of Pickett and Sutton, and since we got there early, we had time to go over to the drugstore in the shopping center and goof around. We brought Cokes and blew the straws of the waitress, and walked around eyeing things that were lying out in the open until the manager got wise to us and suggested that we leave. He was too late, though. Dally walked out with 2 packages of Cools under his jacket. Then we went across the street and down Sutton a little ways to the Dingo. There are a lot of drive-ins in town. The Sox go to the Way Out and to Rusty's, and the Greasers go to the Dingo and to Jay's. The Dingo is a pretty rough hangout. There's always a fight going on there, and once a girl got shot. We walked around talking to all the greasers and hoods that we knew, leaning in car windows or hopping into the back seats and getting in on who was running away, who was in jail, and who was going with who could whip who, and who stole what and when and why. We knew about everybody there. There was a pretty good fight while we were there between a big 23-year-old greaser and a Mexican hitchhiker. We left when the switchblades came out, because the cops would be soon coming, and nobody in his right mind wants to be around when the fuzz show up. We crossed Sutton and cut around behind Spencer's Special, the discount house. We chased 2 junior high kids across the field for a few minutes. By then it was dark enough to sneak in over the back fence of the nightly double drive-in movie. It was the biggest in town, and it showed 2 movies every night, and on weekends, 4. You could say you were going to the nightly double and have time to go all over town. Now, we all had the money to get in. It only costs a quarter if you're not in the car. But Dally hated to do things the legal way. He liked to show that he didn't care whether there was a law or not. He went around trying to break the law. We went to the rows of seats in front of the concession stand to sit down, but nobody else was there except 2 girls who were sitting down front. Dally eyed them coolly and walked down the aisle and sat right behind them. I had a sick feeling that Dally was up to his usual tricks, and I was right. He started talking loud enough for the 2 girls to hear. He started out bad and got worse. Dallas could talk awful dirty if he wanted to, and I guess he wanted to then. I felt my ears get hot. Two-Bit or Steve or even Soda would have gone right along with him, just to see if they could embarrass the girls, but that kind of kicks doesn't appeal to me. I sat there struck dumb, and Johnny left hastily to get a Coke. Question time! Don't know if you're expecting this, but here we go. So, why does Dally like doing things illegally? It says he went around trying to break laws. What kind of person is Dally then? And how can we kind of tell what kind of person is based on what we see at the bottom of page 20? Yeah, you got it. Thank you for citing evidence on that. That's always good to pull evidence out of a text. So we're back up on page 21 near the top. Here we go. I wouldn't have felt so embarrassed if they had been greasy girls. I might have even helped old Dallas out. But those 2 girls weren't our kind. They were tough-looking girls, dressed sharp and really good-looking. They looked about 16 or 17. One had short, dark hair, and the other had long, red hair. The redhead was getting mad or scared. She sat up straight and she was chewing hard on her gum. The other one pretended not to hear Dally. Dally was getting impatient. He put his feet up on the back of the redhead's chair, winked at me, and beat his own record for saying something dirty. She turned around and gave him a cool stare. Take your feet off my chair and shut your trap. Boy, she was good looking. I've seen her before. She was a cheerleader at our school, and I always thought she was stuck up, though. Dally merely looked at her and kept his feet where they were. Yeah, who's going to make me? And the other turned around and watched us. That's the greaser that jockeys for the Slash J's sometimes, she said, as if we couldn't hear her. I had heard the same tone a million times. Greaser, greaser, greaser. Oh, yeah, I'd heard that tone before too many times. What are they doing in a drive-in without a car, I thought. And Dallas said, I know you 2. I've seen you around rodeos. That's a shame you can't ride a bull half as good as you can talk it, the redhead said coolly and turned back around. And that didn't bother Dally in the least. You 2 barrel race, huh? You better leave us alone, the redhead said in a bit biting voice, or I'll call the cops on you. Oh, my. Dally looked bored now. You've got me scared to death. You ought to see my record sometime, baby. He grinned slyly. Guess what I've been in for? Please leave us alone, she said. Why don't you be nice and just leave us alone? And Dally grinned roguishly. I'm never nice. Want a Coke? She was mad by then. I wouldn't drink if I was starving in the desert. Get lost, you hood. Dally merely shrugged and strolled off. And the girl looked at me. I was half scared of her. I'm half scared of all nice girls, especially Socks. Are you going to start in on us now? I shook my head wide-eyed and said no. Suddenly, she smiled. She was pretty. You don't look the type. What's your name? I wish she hadn't asked me that. I hate to tell people my name for the first time. I'm Ponyboy Curtis. Then I waited for the, you're kidding! That's your real name? One of the other remarks I usually get. Ponyboy's my real name, and personally, I like it. But the redhead just smiled. That's an original and lovely name. Yeah, my dad was an original person, I said. I got a brother named Soda Pop. It even says so on his birth certificate. My name's Sherry, but I'm called Cherry because of my hair. Cherry Valance. Question time! Oh, I bet you didn't see that coming. Or maybe you did. Anyway, I have a question for you. So on page 22, it says that Ponyboy Curtis is his real name, Ponyboy, and that his brother's real name is Soda Pop. Kind of weird, isn't it? What does that maybe say about the kind of parents that Ponyboy had before they died based on their name? What kind of parents would give a name like that to their kids? Think about it. All right, enough about weird names. Let's get back to the story. So we're on the top of page 23. Here we go. I know, I said. You're a cheerleader. We go to the same school. You don't look old enough to be going to high school, the dark-haired girl said. I'm not. I got put up a year in grade school. And Cherry was looking at me. What's a nice, smart kid like you running around with trash like that for? And I felt myself stiffen. I'm a Grease, same as Dally. He's my buddy. I'm sorry, Ponyboy, she said softly. Then she said briskly, your brother Soda Pop, does he work at a gas station? A DX, I think? Yeah. Man, your brother is one doll. I might have guessed you were brothers. You look alike. And I grinned with pride. I don't think I look one bit like Soda, but it's not every day I hear Socks telling me they think my brother is a doll. Didn't he used to ride in rodeos? Saddle bronc? Yeah. Dad made him quit after he tore a ligament, though. We still hang around rodeos a lot. I've seen you two barrel race. You're good. Thanks, Cherry said, and the other girl, who was named Marcia, said, how come we don't see your brother at school? He's not any older than 16 or 17, is he? And I winced inside. Told you I can't stand it that Soda dropped out. He's a dropout, I said roughly. Dropout made me think of some poor dumb-looking hoodlum wandering the streets, breaking out streetlights.
Dahira Zacharias, report to the office. Dahira Zacharias, report to the office.
Sorry for that interruption. That was The Office. I'm recording this after school. Anyway, we're on the bottom of 23. We're going to keep going. Here we go. Dropout made me think of some poor dumb-looking hoodlum wandering the streets, breaking out streetlights. It didn't fit my happy-go-lucky brother at all, but it fitted Dally perfectly. But you could hardly say it about Soda. Johnny came back then and sat down beside me. He looked around for Dally, then managed to shy hi to the girls and try to watch the movie. He was nervous, though. Johnny was always nervous around strangers. Cherry looked at him, sizing him up as she had me. Then she smiled softly, and I knew she had sized him up right. Dally came striding back with an armful of Cokes. He handed one to each of the girls and sat down beside Cherry. This might cool you off. And she gave him an incredulous look, and then she threw her Coke in his face. That might cool you off, greaser. After you wash your mouth out and learn to talk and act decent, I might cool off too. Dally wiped the Coke off his face with his sleeve and smiled dangerously. If I had been Cherry, I would have been beat out of there. I knew that smile. Fiery, huh? Well, that's the way I like 'em. He started to put his arm around her, but Johnny reached over and stopped him. Leave her alone, Dally. Huh? Dally was taken off guard. He stared at Johnny in disbelief. Johnny couldn't say boo to a goose. Johnny gulped and got a little pale, but he said, You heard me. Leave her alone. And Dallas scowled for a second. If it had been me or Two-Bit or Soda or Steve, or anyone but Johnny, Dally would have flattened him without a moment's hesitation. He just didn't tell Dally Winston what to do. One time in a dime store, a guy told him to move over at the candy counter. Dally turned around and belted him so hard it knocked a tooth out of his head. Complete stranger, too. But Johnny was the gang's pet, and Dally just couldn't hit him. He was Dally's pet, too. Dally got up and stalked off, his fists jammed in his pockets and a frown on his face, and he didn't come back. So, based on what we've read, kind of at the bottom of page 24, why is it that Dally will just punch anyone in the face, but not Johnny? What makes Johnny kind of a special character that he doesn't get beat up by Dally? You can also talk amongst yourselves to figure it out. Woohoo! We've been reading for a little while now. We've gotten like couple pages in, I think. Nice. Well, we're going to keep going a little bit. Thank you for being awesome as we read. So we're on the top of page 25. We're going to continue on and see where it goes from here. Here we go. Cherry sighed in relief. Thanks. He had me scared to death. Johnny managed an admiring grin. You sure didn't show it. Nobody talks to Dally that way. She smiled. From what I saw, you do. And Johnny's ears got red. I was still staring at him. It had taken more than nerve for him to say what he'd do to say what he'd said to Dally. Johnny worshipped the ground Dallas walked on, and I had never heard Johnny talk back to anyone, much less his hero. Marcia grinned at us. She was a little smaller than Cherry. She was cute, but that Cherry Valance was a real looker. Y'all sit up here with us. You can protect us. Johnny and I looked at each other. He grinned suddenly, raising his eyebrows so that they disappeared under his bangs. Would we ever have something to tell the boys, his eyes said plainly. We picked up 2 girls, and classy ones at that. Not any greasy broads for us, but real socks. Soda would flip when I told him. Okay, I said nonchalantly. Might as well. And I sat between them, and Johnny sat next to Cherry. How old are y'all? Marcia asked. 14, I said. 16, said Johnny. That's funny, Marcia said. I thought you were both 16, Cherry finished for her. I was grateful. Johnny looked 14 and he knew it, and it bugged him something awful. Johnny grinned. How come y'all ain't scared of us like you were Dally? Cherry sighed. You two are too sweet to scare anyone. First of all, you didn't join in Dallas's dirty talk, and you made him leave us alone. And when we asked you to sit up here with us, you didn't act like it was an invitation to make out for the night. Beside that, I have heard about Dallas Winston before. He looked hard as nails and twice as tough, and you two don't look that mean. Sure, I said tiredly. We're young and innocent. No, Cherry said slowly, looking at me carefully. Not innocent. You've seen too much to be innocent. You're just not dirty. Dally's okay, Johnny said defensively, and I nodded. You take up for your buddies no matter what they do. When you're a gang, you stick up for the members. If you don't stick up for them, if you don't stick together, make like brothers, it's not a gang anymore. It's a pack. A snarling, distrustful, bickering pack like the Sox and their social clubs of the street gangs in New York or the wolves in the timber. He's tough, but he's a cool guy. He'd leave you alone if he knew you, I said, and that was true. When Steve's cousin from Kansas came down, Dally was decent to her and watched his swearing. We all did around nice girls who were the cousinly type. I don't know how to explain it. We try to be nice to girls we see once in a while, like cousins or the girls in class, but we still watch a nice girl go by in a street corner and say all kinds of lousy stuff about her. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. Well, that's an interesting revelation. So it says at the bottom of 26 that the gang will try to be nice to some girls, but when they see a nice girl go by in a street corner, they'll say terrible things to her. That's called catcalling, by the way, which is not a good thing to do. So why do you think Johnny and Ponyboy and them will act nice to some girls, but to other girls they see walking by, they'll just say all kinds of terrible things? Why do you think they do that? Why would anyone do that? Oh man, we've read like almost 10 pages now, I think, or I don't know, I'm bad at math, but we should probably have a little stretch break, because if we don't have a stretch break, we'll go crazy. So here's how a stretch break works. I'm going to play a little music, and I'll show some images, videos of things, and I'll sing terribly. And then we'll have a little stretch break where you can get up and stretch for a little bit, and then like it'll kind of break things up a little bit, and yeah, that should be nice. So here we go. Sometimes you need a stretch break, like an eagle staring at you in the night. I can't hold a tune very well, but I can tell you it's time to stretch. Look at that turtle go. He's like a little guy having a stretch, as we should all be stretching. Sometimes sitting for a long time is bad, which is why the cheetah runs so fast. Because when they're looking for food, they've gotta stretch out. It's a good time to be a bear, 'cause bears hunt for fish, and fish is really good, and it's full of omega oils and things. And oh, look, there's a monkey. We're getting up and stretching, having a nice little stretch break because we've read a while. Like this poor little monkey looking around, and it's wonderful animals. Oh, look, there's some fish. Fish don't really stretch because they don't have limbs, but they have fins, which is kind of like it, but not really. Hope you had a good stretch break and that I didn't, make you go crazy with my singing. There's some elephants. Yeah. See, this is exactly what happens when Mr. Plater gets a flat tire and has to spend an extra hour and a half after school. He makes ridiculous videos. Anyway, we're going to continue on. We're on the top of page 27. Hope you had a good stretch break. So here we go. The Outsiders, page 27 at the top. Well, Marcia said with finality, I'm glad he doesn't know us. I kind of admire him, Cherry said softly. So only I heard, and then we settled down to watch the movie. Oh, yeah. We found out why they were there without a car. They came with their boyfriends, but walked out on them when they found out the boys had brought some booze along. The boys got angry and left. I don't care if they did, Cherry sounded annoying. It's not my idea of a good time to sit in a drive-in and watch people get drunk. You could tell by the way that she said that it was her idea of a good time was probably high class and probably expensive. They decided to stay and see the movie anyway. It was one of those beach party movies with no plot, no acting, but lots of girls in bikinis and some swinging songs, so it was all right. We were all four sitting there in silence when suddenly a strong hand came down on Johnny's shoulder and another on mine, and a deep voice said, All right, greasers, you had it. And I almost jumped out of my skin. It was like having someone leap out from behind a door and yell, Boo at you. I looked over fearfully over my shoulder, and there was Two-Bit, grinning like a chessy cat. Glory, Two-Bit, scare us to death. He was good at voice imitations and sounded for all the world like a snarling sock. Then I looked at Johnny. His eyes were shut and he was white as a ghost. His breath was coming in smothered gasps. Two-Bit knew better than to scare Johnny like that, but I guess he'd forgotten. He was kind of scatterbrained. Johnny opened his eyes and said weakly, Hey, Two-Bit. Two-Bit messed up his hair. Sorry, kid, he said. I forgot. He climbed over the chair and plopped down beside Marcia. Who's this? Your great aunts? Great grandmother's twice removed, Cherry said smoothly. I couldn't tell if Two-Bit was drunk or not. It's kind of hard to tell with him. He acts boozed up sometimes even when he's sober. He cocked one eyebrow up and the other down, which he always does when something puzzles him or bothers him, or when he feels like saying something smart. Shoot, you're 96 if you're a day. I'm a knight, Marcia said brightly, and Two-Bit stared at her admiringly. Brother, you're a sharp one. Where did you two ever be picked up by a couple of greasy hoods like Pony and Johnny here? We really picked them up, Marcia said. We're really Arabian slave traders, and we're thinking about shanghaiing them. They're worth 10 Campbells apiece, at least. 5, Two-Bit disagreed. They don't talk Arabian, I don't think. Say something in Arabian, Johnny Cake. Cut it out, Johnny broke in. Dally was bothering them, and when he left, they wanted us to sit here to protect him. Against wisecracking greasers like you, probably. And Two-Bit grinned because Johnny didn't usually get sassy like that. We thought we were doing good if we can get him to talk at all. Incidentally, we don't mind being called greaser by another greaser. It's kind of playful then. Hey, where is old Dally anyway? Oh, he went hunting some action, booze or dames or a fight. Hope he doesn't get jailed again. He just got out. He'll probably find the fight, Two-Bit said cheerfully. That's why I came over. Mr. Timothy Shepard and company are looking for whoever so kindly slashed their car tires. And since Mr. Curly Shepard spotted Dallas doing it, well, does Dally have a blade? Not that I know of, I said. I think he's got a piece of pipe, but he busted his blade this morning. Good. Tim will fight fair if Dally don't pull a blade on him. Dally shouldn't have any trouble. Cherry and Marcia were staring at us. You don't believe in playing rough or anything, do you? Fair fight isn't rough, Two-Bit said. Blades are rough. So are chains and heaters and pool sticks and rumbles. Skin fighting isn't rough. Blows off steam better than anything. We're going to take a pause on that because that's an interesting point to pause here in the middle of 29. So why is it that a fair fight isn't rough, according to Two-Bit? He says that blades are rough, chains and heaters, which are guns, and pool sticks and rumbles, right? But skin fighting isn't rough. How does this show how they solve their problems? And why might solving their problems this way be a little bit of a problem? You could talk about it with a buddy if you'd like. Or if you want to talk about that ridiculous stretching song that I did, that's okay for a little bit too. But why don't we just talk about why is it that they solve their problems that way? And how is that maybe not so good of a thing? Oh man, we're like halfway through the chapter. It's pretty crazy, huh? Well, hopefully you've been taking some good notes. If you haven't been, this might be a good time to kind of stop and see what's been going on in the chapter so far. And I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I'm not even really reading it from here. This is just, me thinking back to what we read. So, what happens first, right? These guys show up with Dally at the movie theater, right? At the drive-in movie theater. They decide that they're too good to pay any money to go in, so they basically smuggle themselves in. And when they get there, they see these two sock girls. Dally decides, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start making fun of them and being a jerk. And they don't like that. So he goes off to go get some cokes. This gives some time for Ponyboy and Johnny to get to talk to these two girls, Cherry and Marcia, a little bit. And they find out that maybe they're not as different as they think, right? Because they're, they're socks, but they're nice socks. And in fact, Johnny and Ponyboy are greasers, but they look at them as nice greasers. This, of course, is all ruined when Dally comes back and says more terrible things to them, and so they throw a Coke on him, and then he storms off. Things seem to be going all right for a little bit as they're talking a little bit. Johnny and Marcia and Cherry and Ponyboy. And then Two-Bit shows up, scares Johnny quite a bit. And then they start talking a little bit about how they solve their problems as a gang. So if you've wrote down a couple of squares in your flow map that's along those lines, that's pretty good, pretty solid. Just make sure that you have those down because we're probably going to pause right about here today. And I would like to leave you with this thought for today. If you're ever wondering if you should solve your problems like the outsiders do by roughing someone up, well, you probably end up in jail. So not a good idea. There's a life lesson there. And treat girls nicely. Just treat everybody nicely, really. Because if you don't treat them nicely, then you'll probably get, like soda thrown in your face. And that would be terrible, really. But no one wants that. So, all right. Awesome.